What's on your wall, Andrew?
Apple boxes, because I kind of started my career with buyer's guides surrounding iPhones and stuff.
Nice.
Rather than throwing them away, I wanted to be more efficient and find a good way to repurpose them as background stuff.
I like your recycling mentality. We have a lot of parts that we've made for Aptera that we then design a new part and it replaces the old one. I'm like, don't throw away the old part.
Yeah.
It's going to be cool for a wall display eventually.
Well, good idea. Thank you so much, Chris, the first CEO to ever show up on Tailosive. It means so much to us. And not only that, it comes from my favorite startup company. Thank you.
We appreciate the support and happy to be here.
What's it like running the best startup company in the world?
I would say every day is a challenge. New engineering challenges, new business challenges, new challenges on how to actually get the world's most efficient vehicle, into production with the type of parts and equipment and batteries and drivetrain things that we need. So it's definitely not, they don't have a build the world's most efficient vehicle for dummies book. So you just have to embrace the challenge and find good people to surround yourself. We have an amazing team here to help make it happen. We all just go at it together.
The reason I say you're the best startup in the world is your first product, the launch edition, basically unbeatable specs. I mean, not only are we talking 400 miles of range, 40 miles of range added back, so that's like 10% of free charge a day from sunlight. You're talking 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, and all of that stuff we've seen before, but never like in the sub $40,000 realm. And I assume that by streamlining and getting more people to switch to the launch edition, that kind of simplifies a lot of your first year of production. So like, are you guys looking at 50% of your reservations switch to launch, or less or more?
I don't actually know a good number for how many people have switched to launch, but I want to say it's more than 20% though. I think a lot of people are excited about the launch edition, but really the reason why we're able to create such a compelling vehicle from the start is efficiency. What most people don't realize about our business model is when you focus on efficiency, your vehicle actually becomes cheaper. You can have a vehicle with a battery pack that's a third to a quarter of the size of the average EV and still get the same amount of range. The batteries are the most expensive thing in an electric vehicle. So gosh, wouldn't you want to make the battery pack as cheap as possible and still get the same performance? So by focusing on efficiency as rule one, we've been able to make a very affordable, very compelling product right off the jump and have a very profitable business in the making. So, I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is how do they make this vehicle so cheap? It must be deficient in some way. It must, have cheap materials, or it must not have, kind of the same safety features or anything. No, we make it affordable by making it efficient. We hope the world embraces efficiency and everything can benefit from aerodynamics and lightweight and super efficient powertrains and make the whole EV industry much more affordable and attainable by people. It's definitely a shame to see the industry veer off into big pickup trucks and huge SUVs that burn 8, sometimes 10 times as much energy as the Aptera. That means they have to have battery packs that are 8, 10 times as big as the Aptera. That's more cobalt out of the earth. It's more aluminum out of the earth. It's all these raw materials that it takes to make those vehicles. They all have to come in as inputs before you even drive it the first mile. We have a lot less material in the creation of the Aptera, and we use a lot less energy per mile when you're operating the Aptera, and it's affordable. So we think it's just the right mix at the right time for the world.
I don't know if you followed what like Rivian went through as they took reservations and they were in the development period for a long time and then transitioned into production, figure out here's what it costs to build these things, through Steve talking on other podcasts about like trying to figure out what to accurately price this at once it's in production. And does it make sense in your head to kind of learn from what like Rivian has done and say reservation holders can lock in their pricing, but future orders have to pay the updated pricing? I have kind of a case as to why I think that may be a good idea, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too.
Well, our mission as a company is to make the world a more efficient place. We do that by getting more Aptera on the road. So we could certainly make a $200,000 version of the Aptera, probably make a profitable business at doing that, selling several hundred of those vehicles a year. Carbon fibery goodness and lots of bling metal on it, and it's the most efficient, lightest weight thing ever. But we want everybody to be able to have an Aptera in their driveway, charging free from the sun every day. We think the grid independence and the affordability of transportation is something that, the world should have. It's really our mission to spread transportation efficiency throughout the world. And I don't think we can do that with a $200,000 vehicle. There's lots of really cool cars out there that you can buy that go really fast or look really cool that are really expensive. You don't see them driving on the road every day for a reason, because they're not approachable from the mainstream. So we think that, having zero fuel cost transportation means that people can pay a little more for the Aptera, but they're not going to pay, $150,000, $200,000 for the Aptera, have this be 10% of the vehicle market over time. I mean, we want to have significant impact on the way materials are used to create transportation devices and how transportation uses its energy per mile. Starts with lightweightness, aerodynamics, efficient powertrains, add-on solar power, and gosh, you have just a winning formula. But if you price it out of the reach of the common person, then you're just not going to get widespread adoption. So it's a balance, to have a healthy company to build, some of the compelling technologies we have and still, make a profit. But we think we can do that at a very cost-efficient price for people in the mainstream, and we think that we can be a large player in the transportation industry over time.
My thought process is like when people put in a reservation, they lock in their price, and then you say, but for new orders, it's a couple grand more. We see this going on with Tesla's ordering system, and their price is changing constantly. Is like, this makes the people that put a deposit down feel like they got a deal. Now I've got an asset. I should take delivery because already I could either enjoy this, or I know that if I don't go through with my order and I wait till later, I'm going to have to pay a premium, especially now that you're at over 41,000 orders at this point. Like, the demand is there. That's been proven.
I think the biggest boost in the beginning for the first, certainly 2,000 vehicles is the actual reservation. We hope that there's a marketplace for these first 2,000 slots, like there was a marketplace for Model 3 reservations early on. I mean, those reservations were extremely valuable. People were selling them on eBay for thousands and thousands of dollars. First, we think that, just having access to this compelling technology early on is a real asset. We really want a sense of fairness with our community. It's our community that's gotten us to where we are. The vast majority of our funding thus far has come from crowdfunding. We have over 15,000 investors in Aptera, and we want people to appreciate that we're supporting the community, the 41,000 plus orders we have now, and we're really being fair about our pricing. We don't want to make, 100 points of margin on these vehicles, but we think that over time, as a company, us making 20 plus points of margin on vehicles is something that will keep us healthy and something that will help us continue to innovate in transportation efficiency. People will support us long term. It's kind of the Costco model. When you go to Costco, they're not charging you more than 15% on any item in the whole store. They're not out to gouge you. They don't have specials. They don't have sale signs. You have a membership to Costco and you're just like, great, these people are out searching for the best buys for me and they're not going to charge me more than 15%. I am fine with that. Let them focus on, what they can do best, which is purchasing stuff for us. We hope that that's Aptera in the future, that people can trust us to design the most efficient transportation, and we're not going to gouge them on profitability in the future. We're going to make a commitment to them that we're going to bring them efficient transportation at a very reasonable price, and we hope that they will help us spread the love for solar-powered mobility around the world over time.
It's like a paradox, because it's like the people that don't price gouge you, I'm at the same time like, I want you guys to have all the money though. You should be super profitable. Like, you guys deserve it more than all these other companies focusing on the high price, high luxury. Well, you've seen the rant. You know how that goes. All the different trims you have, you're starting with this three-wheeler and got 4 different battery pack sizes to choose from, but you're starting with the 400. Now getting all this data, I believe you said in an interview, it was something like 70 or 80% of the reservations were in favor of full solar. Is that right?
Yeah, the vast majority of people wanted full solar. In the beginning, we were like, well, a glass rear hatch would be nice because you get a little more sunlight, you have more rear visibility if you want to turn around and not just focus on the cameras. With the vast majority of people wanting full solar because they want to take advantage of as much solar capability as possible, we should just launch with full solar. We found through testing too that I don't ever turn around to look behind me in the rearview mirror. The tail is kind of high. You can't really see all the way to the ground anyways. You're going to be utilizing that backup camera for backing up. So in my Tesla, I've gotten used to over the years. It's a great backup camera. It works way better than you turning over your shoulder and looking back. So now that the technology's there, why do you really need that back glass? So we think that it's going to be something that's very, useful for people when they get these first launch edition vehicles. And because the vast majority of people want it that way, you might as well build it that way.
Playing around with the configurator, I also opted for full solar for the record. Do you think you need all these different solar packages, like one with just the roof and one with just the hood and one with the glass hatch? Because I agree with you. I'd be in favor of just solar hatch everything, but doesn't it add complexity having so many different solar trims to choose from?
Yeah, in the beginning we thought that people may want a lot of options, because if I have a workplace that's only 4 miles away and I maybe only put at most 20 miles on my vehicle a day, maybe I don't want the extra weight and complexity and cost of the extra solar. We have an odd thing in the US where people buy a lot of 4x4 SUVs and pickup trucks, right? And the vast majority of them never actually put it into four-wheel drive and use that, four-wheel capability. But just having it there is a nicety, and people are willing to pay up for that. So I think most people have said, I want all the solar. And in the beginning, maybe we were thinking, well, some people may just want to save, the cost complexity of having the rear hatch and the hood. But it could be over time that, hey, this is just how the Aptera comes. That's just the easiest from a streamlining manufacturing perspective. But I think we'll have a time in the future where we'll still allow people to not get the rear hatch and the hood.
So not too complicated then to have a whole hatch line of glass and a hatch line of solar and kind of mix and match?
Well, we've done a really cool thing with our solar package in that the way they're made is that the solar is really just an overlay to the part. So like in the rear hatch, you could have either a clear Lexan piece that goes over the rear hatch and the middle could be cut out so you could see out of the back, or you have solar put on it. Same thing with the hood. It's got like this undercarriage part, and then the solar is just basically bonded to the top of it. So you would just bond on a piece of black Lexan or something on top that matches the body color or whatever if you didn't want the solar hood. So I think it's really interesting how we've kind of gone the extra mile with Sandy Monroe and the guys at CPC to make things really manufacturable and tunable. So in the future we can give people a lot of options.
You're the only startup I've seen with a design like this that scales between 4 very, very different battery pack sizes. Starting with 25 kilowatt hours and 40 and then 100. I'm still struggling to wrap my brain around, like, how do you maintain 100 watt hours per mile, that's like the target, across a battery pack that's 25 kilowatt hours and 100? Is it varying difference in energy density, or do you need a different suspension system? How can you maintain that?
Yeah, we haven't talked about it much, but it is a pretty huge disparity between 25 kilowatt hours and 100 kilowatt hours. Obviously, once you really squash aerodynamics as a loss and you squash the efficient powertrain as a loss, the last loss is weight. So adding that much weight definitely uses a lot more energy. But we haven't really quoted that energy, usage for the 25 or 40 kilowatt hour pack because we, didn't want to overpromise. The 25 kilowatt hour pack uses significantly less energy than the 100 kilowatt hour pack. But we're still confident that within a reasonable range of 100 watt hours per mile, we can get to 1,000 miles with a 100 to 106 kilowatt hour pack in the highest weight version. Right now, it would come with a different belly pan. The battery pack would sit underneath the vehicle a little different, and it would protrude out of the current belly pan. So the 100 kilowatt hour pack would have a different belly pan, and it would have a different suspension, so different shocks, different springs to accommodate for the extra weight. But everything else in the vehicle, is designed the same and powertrain, tuned to using 100 kilowatt hours versus 25 kilowatt hours.
The 100 watt hour figure, would you say, is a reasonable estimate for the entire lineup, or is that mostly just for the launch edition?
I would say it's a good number for the entire lineup, but expect that the 25 kilowatt hour version will use significantly less energy than the 100 kilowatt hour version.
Less than 100 watt hours a mile?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really, when we first started analyzing, we were kind of in the 40 to 60 kilowatt hour analysis range. We figured that we would end up eliminating maybe 1 or 2 of the range options over time. But until we get all of our supply chain contracts in place, it's really hard to kind of nail down, okay, this battery supplier is giving us this cell with this energy density for this price. Okay, that works for a 26 kilowatt hour pack, 45 kilowatt hour pack, a 62 kilowatt hour pack, and a 106 kilowatt hour pack. Once we get, the definition of those cells from our supplier, when we're able to sign master supply agreements, then we'll be able to really spec what those are. And it may come in, we have a choice between 18 kilowatt hours or 26 kilowatt hours. Like that's just what packages. People probably do want an 18 kilowatt hour pack because that makes the vehicle much cheaper. Okay, let's go with 18 and let's kill the 26 kilowatt hour pack. Over the next 6 months, we'll be able to make decisions on supply chain stuff like that and be able to inform our community on, okay, this is how we really see the battery pack shaking out. Like right now, our 40 kilowatt hour pack is really a 45 kilowatt hour usable. That's how it's spec'd. But that's the one cell that we know we can get for production. The other cells for the other packs, we don't really know because we haven't signed the agreement fully on those cells yet. So
future specs outside of the launch are kind of up for debate on what the market dictates is both supply chains and customers, like what they dictate. Is this makes sense?
It's been a hairy year for supply chain stuff. The cost of metals have been crazy, and because of that, a lot of the input costs for the suppliers being so varied, nobody wants to sign a real supply agreement because they're scared that the prices may change in the future. So they either want to sign variable pricing into the agreements, or they want to, they want to have these caveats. So hey, we can charge you more if the price of this goes up, type thing. Whereas 2 years ago, we had lots of agreements on on the table where it was just, this is how much you pay for the cell. It's $5.60 a cell. Like, that's just it. You just pay for the cell. It's very simple. So it's been an interesting time, and battery technologies keep getting better every day. So most of the progress that I've seen, I have another battery company, Flux Power. We build lithium battery packs for forklifts and robotics and a bunch of cool stuff like that. But I've been to almost every large battery manufacturing plant in Asia, and I know a lot about battery manufacturing. It's really these days coming down to purity of material. They're getting better at refining the materials that goes into these batteries. That lowers the internal impedance, so you can charge them quicker without them getting hot, and they can store more energy because they don't have to worry about the unbalance of the cells as they get to the top end and the low end of the charge range. So that's really what's been happening in the last 3 or 4 years in the battery industry. Is they've just gotten better with purity of materials, and they're using existing chemistries that have been around for a decade, but they're just getting more and more pure materials in there so they can get the energy density up and then get the charge rates up, and they last longer as well. So it'll be interesting to see. My Tesla is going on, 8 years now. Battery pack's still working great. I think there's a lot of people out there with 10 plus years on their battery packs now, vastly achieved their expectations for how long the batteries would last from 10 years ago. Flash forward to today, batteries are just much, much better. So I'm hopeful that, we'll see some generational battery packs out of the Aptera as we go forward.
And I could envision, on your subject of cost, the battery pack is so small and so light, switching to more of a iron-based cathode LFP on the lower range options so that they have the higher cycle life and the full 100% charge regularly.
Yeah, my other company, Flux Power, we exclusively focus on lithium iron phosphate chemistries.
Oh, cool.
It's a great chemistry. It has a lot of benefits, but the detractor is that they are about 30% less energy dense than the NMC chemistries today. You get some benefits in charge time and possibly longevity, but the disbenefit is they weigh about 30% more. On the lower range vehicles, we could see, maybe 20 kilowatt hour-ish Aptera would be just fine with the extra weight from a lithium iron phosphate battery pack. It would possibly cost less too, and we could have kind of a very cost-efficient version of the Aptera on the lower end, and then the higher range version, the 60 and the 100 kilowatt hour versions, obviously you'd have to go with some NMC chemistry or some future chemistry that's coming down the pipe.
I'm just a big fan. My Tesla's LFP, and I just think that cycle life on the lower range with a good charge network makes the most amount of sense. But when you've got the efficiency that you guys do,
our beautiful nationwide NACS charging network for supercharging is just great for Aptera and other EVs. But we hope that most of our driving is obviously done from the power of the sun. So if you're getting 40 miles a day free from the sun and you're only driving 30 miles a day, your battery pack is always full and you're ready to go anywhere you want. Those cross-country trips, I could see that being a really fun thing to do with Aptera. You get the camping kit, you get the off-road kit, you're able to go anywhere you want to go. You drive 200 miles to your favorite camping spot, you camp for a week, you actually come back with more energy in your Aptera than you left with. I mean, that just sounds really, really cool. There's just no other vehicle that creates its own fuel. Any other vehicle, whether you got to charge it or put petroleum or diesel in it, drive in one direction, if you don't have access to fuel, you're screwed. That's it. You aren't coming home. With the Aptera, you can just wait, let the sun do its work, get more charge in the battery. You can run your laptop and your cooktop and all sorts of fun stuff while you're camping and still come back with more energy in your Aptera. So it's really cool. It's not only, kind of this cost benefit to Aptera. The average American spends over $5,000 a year on fuel now. So gosh, I just bought a $26,000 Aptera. 1, 2, 3. Holy crap, I basically have a free Aptera after 5 years, and I still get to drive this beautiful thing that I have. So it has this cost benefit, and this has this really utility/freedom benefit that I can go anywhere I want to go. If the zombies attack and all the fuel pumps are down, I can drive in one direction, and as long as it's sunny where I am, I can recharge and keep going and keep going and keep going. So, I don't like to pontificate about a Mad Max future, but the Aptera does do quite well in those scenarios.
Do you envision the 100 kilowatt hour pack or even the 60 being able to sustain higher peak speeds than the 45 kilowatt hour, the 20 kilowatt hour?
We would love to charge our 100 kilowatt hour battery pack at 300 kilowatts, from the Tesla supercharging network. The problem really is the batteries create heat when you charge them. Our vehicle uses so little energy that we really don't abuse the battery pack on discharge, but we could abuse the battery pack on charge. So if you shove too much energy into the battery pack, then it gets hot. Then you have to cool it. Then you have to slow down the charge rate so the battery pack doesn't get too hot. Lithium iron phosphate the new chemistries are pretty great at that. You can shove a lot of power into them. They don't get too hot. NMC a little less so. But we do have an actively cooled battery pack, and obviously the bigger battery packs would have, active cooling as well. So we could probably, put up to 300 kilowatts into a 100 kilowatt hour pack. So I definitely see that, as we grow as a brand and as we have more variants of the Aptera, we think the Aptera would be just great for a lot of commercial applications. When you're thinking about the guys that are checking the gas meter or the electric meter at your house, or they're doing security on fence lines, or they're plumbers or whatever, you could imagine an Aptera with a rear hatch that has more storage in the back. You could have your tools back there, take out the passenger seat. So there's lots of situations like that. Maybe it's autonomous airport pickup, those types of things, where maybe you do want a much faster recharge time because you're putting a lot of miles on the Aptera a day. So those are kind of the instances where I think people would really appreciate a faster recharge time. But most of the Apteras that are in our community today, the 41,000 pre-orders that we have, the vast majority of that driving is going to be coming from power from the sun. So you wouldn't really need that fast charge capability. But we certainly want to grow the brand. We want to have as many Aptera on the road as possible. Our goal is to put 1 million Aptera on the road by 2033. So it took Tesla 13 years, so we hope to do it in 10. We will have to have a lot of different capabilities to kind of get those vehicles out on the road, fast charging being one of them.
The number I always look at is like miles per hour added back to the battery. A lot of the time we get obsessed with 100, 200, 300 kilowatts, but you don't know what that translates to depending on the vehicle. Yeah. With your guys' vehicle, 300 kilowatts would be like 3,000 miles an hour speed. Like no one could come close to that. 3,000
miles an hour. It's like future talk. But one day we'll be able to recharge at 3,000 miles an hour. My longest road trips, what do you stay in the vehicle for? 200-300 miles at the most. So yeah, if you could get 300 miles in 10 minutes,
that's plenty.
That's great. That's not even time to make it to the bathroom and back.
You wouldn't even need to hit 300. Like, that wasn't even a number in my head for, like, the 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. I was thinking, like, if these guys ever can handle 150 kilowatts, which is relative to other popular EVs, not that crazy. But if you just did that, it would translate to the fastest charging EV on the market, because nothing really hits 1,500 miles per hour right now. So that's just another example of, like, if you have a form factor that's this efficient, you can beat everybody in all kinds of crazy specs.
When you focus on efficiency, great things happen. This very small solar package we have of only 700 watts of power actually gives you really useful range. When you go to the charging station, the amount of charge you can get back into the battery pack, even from smaller 50 kilowatt DC fast chargers, is pretty compelling. 500 miles in an hour means you're at 200 miles in 27 minutes or something. Like, that's enough time to go in and buy a soda and a candy bar and use a restroom and come back out to your Aptera and you're back on your road trip. So it's really through this focus on efficiency that we get all these downstream benefits. Small battery pack, quick fast charging times, solar panels that can actually have really useful range for you, and the affordability of a vehicle, that can get you pretty compelling range in the EV world.
What blows my mind is seeing all these other inefficient EV startups get so much funding, and they're blowing it, in my opinion, on things that we don't need. Like, oh great, a 12th SUV. That's what we needed in the EV space. It's just more of the same. So, like, are you tempted at all when you're trying to convince investors or trying to sell more people on it to be like, there's more to come? Like, there's going to be different options with more wheels or more seating and more functionality, whether it be a sedan or an Aptera efficiency-focused pickup truck, whatever it may be. Like, the three-wheeler isn't enough for them?
Yeah, I mean, we think the market is vast with our three-wheel platform. We think we could deliver 1 million Aptera just with the three-wheel platform over the next 10 years. Efficiency can be had in almost any form. You can make almost anything more aerodynamic, lighter weight, an efficient powertrain, and you could put solar on it and start to get some solar gain from it. But it's really focusing on efficiency, whether it's a pickup truck, a sedan, whether it's a semi-truck or a box truck to deliver Amazon packages. It's really starting with first principles engineering and, hey, we want this to be efficient first. We don't care how it looks. We don't care about a lot of the other attributes that most other vehicle manufacturers would start with. They'd run a focus group. They would say, okay, we want to get into the crossover SUV game. We're going to do a focus group. We're going to see, how many cup holders people want. Then we're going to see how we got to price it. Okay, we got to price it, at 42.5. Okay, now we have to make a bill of materials that matches, some profitability, 42.5. So it's a completely different way to look at kind of product iteration and design when you are just focused on efficiency. Okay, we want to deliver packages now. Okay, we think we need a fourth wheel because, if we're going to have at least 80 cubic feet of storage, we're going to have a fourth wheel. Okay, well, what does the aerodynamic shape look like around that? Okay, how do we make this the lightest weight chassis possible to support that? And then, how do we put a really efficient powertrain in it? The great thing about the three-wheel platform is it gives us kind of all the base units for almost any vehicle we want to make. Battery pack, you've got drivetrain, you've got all the power systems, you've got UI, UX, steering, braking, all these these other chassis systems. It's really just how do you design a new body enclosure system and put it on a slightly different chassis. Adding a fourth wheel is not difficult for Aptera. Problem is it comes with some extra expenses and some compliance efforts that we'd have to go through to launch with a four-wheeler. The three-wheeler is the most efficient platform that we could find. We want to be the most efficient vehicle in the world. It comes with some side benefits on the compliance side and being able to launch the vehicle to the public. We don't have to have any kind of federal agency sign off, on what we do to actually sell the vehicles. We're a registered federal vehicle manufacturer now. The 6 vehicles we have, down in the shop, we could sell them tomorrow. You could take them to Progressive Insurance. You could get your insurance. You could drive them away. The other EV startups that have come along, they kind of always get to this end gate and then, there's a delay. A lot of that sometimes is compliance delay, just waiting for all the sign-offs that you have to actually get the vehicle on the road. So we started with efficiency and came up with 3 wheels, and then it was probably a year later where we're like, it does come with some significant benefits when it comes to getting vehicles on the road. Steve came to me with this idea of efficiency. We started talking about the shape and the cambered body, and I put together a little clay model. It was out of red clay. Then we put it on a little cake turner, and we took a bunch of pictures of it, spinning it around, and then we gave it to a NURBS modeler to make the first model of the Aptera. That's what people saw on the cover of Popular Science magazine years ago. And then we were, kind of off to the races with a business plan. But we didn't set out to build that really efficient vehicle version with any kind of set parameters in mind, except what does the most efficient aerodynamic shape look like around a vehicle? We did have as a constraint, you got to sit 2 people side by side. We didn't want to have tandem seating with one in front of the other. Start with 2 people side by side. What's the most aerodynamic shape that goes around them, and everything else trickled down from there. 3 wheels, lightweight chassis, in-wheel motors, where the battery pack was positioned, all that stuff trickled down from that kind of first ethos of what's the most aerodynamic shape that can surround 2 people side by side. It's a much different kind of company because of it. We have been doing a lot of business presentations and talking with a lot of investors, and we're certainly unique. Unfortunately, uniqueness does not endear investors because they see unique as risk. The first iPhone was very unique when it first came out, and everybody that owned a BlackBerry said, no way am I ever going to type on a screen, this is crazy. But now look at it. I think that kind of every great innovation comes with a lot of uniqueness and intrinsically a lot of risk. People are starting to come around and warm up to us, so we're thinking that we're going to have some big things break in not a lot of time.
You've definitely convinced the public with as much demand as you've gotten, and I'm curious if that's made you think about restructuring. Like, the referral program just seems overly generous to me. I don't see any other company able to offer that much credit towards the purchase.
Yeah, when we came up with the referral program, we really looked at Tesla and said Tesla got a lot of early enthusiasm because of the way they did the referral program. Okay, how did they do it? Why did they do it? Did it really work? And the numbers from my perspective was, gosh, if you could just give away 3% of the purchase price to incentivize new people to purchase your vehicles, that's a win every time. You look at acquisition costs, from some other big companies, Toyota and Ford and these, really big companies that have crazy marketing budgets. It's not so much now, but you look at, in the past decade, and you're like, how much money do they have to throw into advertising just to get people to buy their X, vehicle? If you just eliminate that and say, if you're a fan of solar transportation and you share that story with somebody else, we'll give that person a 3% discount on the vehicle by paying the other person $1,000. That makes sense all day long. So I don't see any change to our referral program in the near term. If anything, we just want to incentivize people more to get the word out and share our story. And hey, if you can get 26 people to believe in solar mobility like you do, you get a free Aptera. Sweet. That just works. So there's a lot of people out there with a lot of referrals, and we think it's great. If you want to have a fleet of 10 Aptera at your house and you want to start a race series and it's all about solar racing in the future, we don't mind what you do with your Aptera. Obviously, most of those are probably going to get sold because the first Aptera off the production line are going to be very, very sought after. You saw that with a lot of these new vehicles, Rivian and Tesla in the early days, and I can't imagine how much the first Cybertrucks are going to go for in the aftermarket. The first Apteras are going to be very, very valuable, and that's why we created this accelerator program with the first 2,000 orders. We think people will hopefully be fighting over those first 2,000 orders. They'll become very, very valuable vehicles, and the person that gets number 1 will be the most valuable, but that 2,000th vehicle, imagine putting in your order today and being number 42,000. Certainly love to have that number 2,000 instead of 42,000. Those first vehicles will be quite an amazing sight, and I can't wait to just see them out on the road.
I'm amazed by the willingness to do that. It's just, I want you guys to have all the money again, so be careful with how generous the referral program. You notice Tesla got rid of it now. You know, it's not the same as it used to be. So I'm like, just don't go bankrupt. That's
I
all
honestly
I'm saying.
don't know why people have brought it up around here. We've talked about it as a company, but I'm like, it's 3%. It's 3% of the our average selling price is like $36,000 for the average order. I'm like, it's 3%. We're giving 3% to build a community, to have people share our story. Like, we would pay that all day long in perpetuity, you know, from now until, you know, we're old and gray. I think that's an easy give, you know, for the people that are motivated to get out and tell our story. Great, you know, it's kudos to them, and you know, it helps us, it helps them, everybody's happy.
Is there any questions that you're thinking of these days where you're like, why don't they ask more about this? Why aren't they asking us about this? Like, are there topics you're hopeful people would be more curious on that I can ask?
I mean, you've been a great evangelist on a lot of the points that I really wanted to drive home over the last few months. So we appreciate your support, and we can't thank you enough for, you know, really spreading the love for solar mobility. The things that we've launched, you know, over the last 6 months, really pressing on this Tesla supercharging standard and trying to make it a national standard. And then Aptera's, you know, opened that up, now open up supercharging. You know, that's just amazing. And it's great that you've been able to comment on that and really help us make stuff like that happen. I think that a lot of the people that are probably watching your channel already know our story a bit. So they're like, yeah, so solar charging at 40 miles a day. Like, but for the people that haven't really heard the story, I mean, it really is that we're a company that has focused on transportation in a way that no other company really has. When you start with first principles engineering and you really focus on efficiency, there's all these downstream benefits that our business model is enhanced because we're building a profitable vehicle for less money, and we can sell it to, you know, mass market world. It's solar charging that basically gives you a zero fuel cost transportation device. So people should just be, you know, super enthusiastic about, gosh, I don't have a fuel bill anymore. I don't pay for power from the utility company to charge my vehicle anymore. I don't go to the gas pump anymore. I'm not putting diesel in anything. That is just an amazing, amazing selling point. And to have, you know, the environmental responsibility of buying a piece of transportation equipment that doesn't have but a quarter of the inputs to make the vehicle in aluminum and steel and composites and the stuff that goes into the battery packs, the cobalt and the rare earths and the polymer separator and, you know, all these things that make up these electric vehicles of today. Instead of going the way of 900 watt hours per mile, I could go the way of 100 watt hours per mile. Start with a vehicle that takes a lot less from the planet and during daily use uses a lot less from the planet. The nuclear generator that we have in the sky, the stellar charging that's available to us, just something that we should be taking advantage of. And we're really the first company that's kind of put all the pieces of the puzzle together to say it starts with efficiency and everything else is made a reality from that. So I think you've done an amazing job at telling our story, and we can't thank you and your community of followers enough. All of the reservations, all of the investment, it's made us what we are today. And we hope that you're able to follow us on our path to deliver 1 million of these vehicles over the next 10 years. It'll be an exciting journey.
And if there's ever anything like that angers you or is rant worthy, I know you guys have to look all friendly PR wise, but I can be angry for you. Like, let me rant on your behalf. I'm good at that.
Yeah, I mean, we thought your last rant was perfect. I mean, Steve and I are kind of disheartened that America really has this thirst for rolling houses on wheels that have zero aerodynamic capabilities that,
right,
you know, weigh several tons. To see some of the latest kind of big SUV offerings and some of the stuff that, you know, kind of the Detroit Auto Show stuff that is coming out, I'm like, all the like 35-inch motors on an electric vehicle, like what is happening? Like,
right,
like right. 700 watt hours, 900 watt hours per mile. It's like rolling coal. It's like seeing those guys, you know, with big diesel engines and just big, you know, plumes of smoke coming out. I mean, like, it's just not smart engineering. When I hear loud vehicles, when I smell smelly vehicles, when I see exhaust, I just think it's inefficient. It's not good engineering. We're in the year, you know, 2023, and we haven't come up with the engineering to make these vehicles efficient. We're just burning fuel and we're wasting 70% of it in heat and blow by. Like, holy crap. Like, if you're gonna burn it, at least get 80, 90% of the energy out of that fuel. Like, no, like diesel, gasoline, combustion engines are just horrible at efficiency. Electrons, we've gotten very good at transporting electrons into battery packs, out of battery packs, through inverters, to motors, to wheels. You can get 80, 90% efficient in that range. So, you know, that makes more sense to me. We have the technology, we have the engineering capability. Why aren't we making these vehicles more efficient? And I think that, you know, for us, starts with aerodynamics, lightweight, all those things that we talked about, and the industry is just not going there. They're getting bigger, less efficient. They're just making bigger battery packs. They're like, oh, okay, we can charge $150,000 for this vehicle. Okay, we can put twice the battery pack in it. It's disheartening from an engineering perspective. I want people to bring brilliant engineering solutions to me. I will support them.
Thank you so much for making it, bringing it to this far a stage in development. I hope you get everything you guys need and more.
We greatly appreciate the support, Andrew, and wish all your fans well. Thanks, man.
And also, thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.